Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I've got a couple of XDMs on the table today. Right here I've got the XDm Elite series 4.5. This is the newest series from Springfield Armory, and at the moment these are only available in 9mm. And then over here I've got a 5.25 competition, which is the older generation, and this isn't available in an assortment of different calibers. I'm going to show you the differences between the two of them. Had a few people question, should I get this, should I get that? And then also note that the original series is still available, and they do have 4.5s that are not elites that have the threaded barrel that are set up for an optic with the OSP. So there's an assortment of varieties available. The Elite series adds a couple features. So let's talk about the guns. First we'll start with, just got to grip it properly, that they're both unloaded. So the primary difference between these two is the extended slide. So you have a longer slide on the 5.25. The barrel length ends up being fairly similar, even though you'll find that the threaded barrel is longer because of the threading. You'll see that there's a lightning cut on the slide on the 5.25 competition, and you'll see that it has a fiber optic front sight. If I turn them around so that you can see the sights, the Elite series has a blackout rear sight in their suppressor height. The 5.25 competition has a blackout rear sight, but it's not suppressor height, they're standard height. You'll see that the red dot is fairly easy to find, but it's small and the gap is small. So sometimes at the range, especially in odd lighting conditions, it can be a little difficult to find that dot, even though they are really good quality high sights. And then the blackout sights were actually fairly hard for me to see. And you'll see even it kind of fuzzes out a little bit. And it was doing that to me at the range. So it's a little bit difficult to use the sights on both of these, at least with my eyes. You may have different experience. Now I did mention that they have 4.5s that are available in other calibers. This is a 45. It has a threaded barrel. That series has suppressor height bright 3-dot sights, and these sights found really easy to see and to shoot well. It's just they stand right out and they're easy to work with. We kind of went back and forth on exactly what to compare, so we've got a series here of different things. This was something that was specifically asked for, the 5.25, and this is a different caliber. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the differences across the three, but of course the range footage to be comparable is 9mm is between these two. So first let's start out with what's different between a 4.5 regular and a 4.5 Elite. Well, one thing you'll notice is there's a hump on the grip safety that makes it a little more sure that you're going to depress the grip safety fully, even though I will say two things. Number one, this hump didn't bother me. It didn't bite into my hand or anything. And number two, I've never had a regular XDM fail to fire because I hadn't depressed this if I even remotely grabbed it properly. You'll see that the slide stop slide release profile is a hair different. I don't think that's a significant difference, but it is something that you can see. It's just the shape and the curvature of it. And you'll see that the serrations are a little wider on the Elite. There's fewer of them and they're a little bit wider, both front and rear. Either one is easily gripped, easy to work with. And of course one of the primary differences is this mag well. You get a flared mag well that helps ensure that you can drive the magazine in regardless of the angle that you come in. It's almost impossible to hang up and not be able to get the magazine in. The Elite also comes with a flatty trigger. You'll see that if I set them kind of side by side, you can look at it. The regular series, both of them, is kind of a curved trigger, and the Elite series is flat with a little hook at the end. They have all of the same safeties, all three of them, and I'll pick up the competition. You'll see it's the same trigger. They have all of the same safeties. They have the grip safety, they have the split trigger for inertial pulls, and they have internal drop safeties. None of the XDM series comes with any sort of an external thumb safety. They're designed similar to Glocks and other striker-fired guns, which these are all striker-fired, to have all the safeties managed themselves as you pull the trigger. Don't pull the trigger, it won't go off. Pull the trigger, it will go off. Kind of a fairly simple formula with these. They're easy to live with, they're easy to work with. All of them offer 3 interchangeable back straps. You can remove this magwell if you want. You just drive out the pin that holds on the back strap, pull the mag well off, and you can put the back strap back on without it. So this is an optional thing. It comes pre-installed on the gun along with the medium back strap. At the moment I've put the large back strap on this one. But you have your choice, and they're easy to do. One pin, in and out, and away it goes. The magazines that come with the Elite series is one of the other differences. They're 22 rounds. So they start out with the 19 round body, and then with this extended base plate you get 22 rounds. They also do come with the flat base plate that you can put on here. One thing I will note is if you have the magwell installed, you have to use the 22 round magazines to get them to fit. They've got a little bit of a flare here at the bottom. You can't use the 19 round magazines. They won't go in far enough to properly work. Now if you take the magwell off, these 19 rounders will work. And the 19 rounders, if I grab the 9mm and not the 45, will work perfectly on the older series. I'm sorry, the 22 round mags will work on the older series. So you do have some interchangeability. You can buy these mags, they'll work, or of course you can use the flush 19 rounds that come with it. Probably the biggest thing that magwell does is, in a competition scenario, makes it really easy to do fast reloads. If you're just wanting to use it for the range, you may take that off because it gets in the way. From a size perspective, they're fairly similar. The Elite series is 8.6 inches long. As you see, you've got the extension there for the threaded barrel. The competition is 8.2 inches long. And by the way, I just noticed I had picked up the 45 by accident, put the Elite behind it, and same things are still true. The barrel's a hair longer because of the barrel extension. The barrels actually come in at 5.28 for the Elite and 5.25 for the competition, so it's not a huge difference. The biggest difference is you'll see the sight radius. You've got the same rough length of barrel, but you've got more slide, so your sights are further apart on the competition. From a height perspective, with the magwell installed, this is 5.875 inches tall. The competition is 5.75 inches tall. Roughly the same thickness, 1.2 for the Elite and 1.18 for the competition. The Elite weighs 30 ounces, the competition weighs 29 ounces. So most of your dimensions are close enough to not matter. You're not really going to be picking it on the dimensions, you're probably going to be picking it based on the features. One thing I did notice is that the older XDM series, the regular XDMs, tend to come with 3 mags. The Elite came with 2. And these may be a little difficult to get in the beginning, but eventually they'll become just as available as any other magazine. And if you take the magwell off, you've got a stash of 19 rounders. You could still actually run the gun and have the extended mags. You just have to go without the magwell for a little bit. Let's talk about MSRP for a second. The Elite series has got an MSRP of $709. Street price looks to be around the $625 territory. And the competition, the 5.25, has an MSRP of $753. Street price seems to be around $550. Now, as of the making of this video, we're right smack in the middle of the whole COVID-19 scare, so these might be some of the only guns that are still available because people seem to be snapping up anything that's remotely concealable. These two really aren't designed to be concealed. They're more range, tactical, competition, maybe hunting, even though 9mm is a bit light for hunting. But they're not necessarily designed to be carried, even though there's no reason you can't. If you can hide the grip and you've got room for the length of the slide, they're every bit as carryable as anything else. They're just going to be a little harder to conceal. So let me take them apart, show you the internals. As you saw, it was really easy to do. You lock it back, flip the lever up, pop it apart. And I'll pop apart the 45. Now, some of the dimensions are going to be different on the 45 because it's a 45. But I'm going to hold the frames up. So I've got the 5.25. I'll put the Elite in the middle. And I've got the 45 on the top. And I will have to make sure I put the right frame on the right body when I'm done. But you'll see they're very similar. The overall design is very similar. The fire control group appears to be nickel boron coated, but I can't swear to that on the Elite. The Elite does have what they call their matched enhanced trigger. which is it's just a little smoother. It's about the same weight, it's just a hair smoother. Not that the triggers on either of the other two are bad by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll set the frames aside, grab the slides, and I'll do the same thing. I'll put them in the same order. Now, of course, the 45, everything's going to be bigger. See if I do this, get them held up, and I don't want to whack them against each other too much. You'll see everything on an XDM is well machined. It's smooth. You'll see that the Elite has a dual recoil spring. The other two have a single spring, non-captive. You'll see there's a drop safety piston at the back. It's right by the edge of my left hand. You'll see there's a little piston. It's kind of easy to see it on the Elite, but all three of them have it. It's right in front of the striker hook. So these are all designed to be drop safe. So now disassembly on these further. On the 5.25, you just pop out the non-captive spring, and this can be a little bit of a trick to get that spring to go back in. It wants to wiggle and fight. The barrel has a very highly polished feed ramp. They're well-constructed barrels. They do have a flare right about here. And the only thing that that'll do to me is when I'm cleaning the barrel and I rub my fingers against it, it feels like a bulge, which would be something you would feel on a barrel that's been fired with a squib or something like that. That's just the design. It helps them lock up tighter. That's not a defect, but I notice it every time I clean it. Put the barrel back. Sometimes the barrel can be a little twitchy to install if you don't get it just right. And I'll set that aside for now because I've got to be actually looking at it to do it. On the Elite series, first thing you have to do is remove the thread protector. Pull out the captive guide rod. Has the same polished feed ramp. The barrels actually look quite similar, other than the fact, of course, this one's threaded. But overall, everything's smooth and well designed. That recoil spring goes in to get you real easy, and then spin the thread protector back on. So putting them together, I'll put this one back together. It's fairly easy. You just line them up, lock them back, drop the lever, and you're back in business. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to put the other two back together and just get it done for you. I had talked about the triggers a little bit. I got them all back together. I'm going to demonstrate the difference between the triggers. I'll start with the 5.25. There's a little bit of take up. You hit a wall. It's about a 5.5 pound brake, nice and crisp. There's the reset right there. It's a decent reset. It's not super short, but it's a really nice reset. There's a little bit of take up after the reset. You're back on the wall. And then another short, crisp brake. Show you that again. Reset, a little bit of take up, back to the wall, and brake. Now these guns are dry fire safe, but we don't own this XDM. It was lent to us by Springfield Armory. So I'm going to put a snap cap in it, because it's just our policy not to dry fire guns we don't own, whether or not the gun is able to be dry fired. A little bit less take up. You're on the wall. Nice crisp brake. Notice the over travel stop there. And actually a shorter reset, and I'm right on the wall. There's no additional take up after that. And then that same crisp brake. So you've got a bit of a tighter trigger. It's still around 5.25 to 5.5 pounds. It's a little bit smoother, and the brake is a little bit shorter. So from a competition perspective, this trigger might actually be a hair easier to get very quick follow-up shots with it. Is it going to make a huge difference? Probably not. One of the questions that has come to mind from a few people is, I've got one of these. I've got a 5.25 competition. Should I trade it in to get an Elite? Do you want the magwell? Yeah, that would be probably the biggest question. Do you want the magwell? If you want the magwell, then this would be the way you would do it. You can't buy this as an accessory, at least at this point, for the older series. Otherwise, if you've already got a 5.25 and you like it, and don't need the threaded barrel, of course that would be the other one, then there's not enough changes to kick this to the curb. And one note too, the magwell's already a little bit of a bevel. You'll see. So it's got a slight flare even without the full flare. So I would say, unless those two specific features, that extra magwell or the threaded barrel, come to mind, there's no good reason to kick this one the curb to get the 4.5 Elite. However, you're shopping for an XDM. You don't have an XDM and you want to get one. Well, then in that case, I wouldn't go with the older series. There's enough improvements to say just go straight to the Elite series. They do have a competition without the threaded barrel in the Elite series, so it would have all the same features of the competition with that new meta trigger and everything else. But if you're shopping, you're going to buy a new one, you might start here. And you might look at it and say, and this happened with the PPQ when it came out, I love everything except I don't want that magwell. Well, one pin, magwell comes off. You still have the extended capacity magazines. You still got the enhanced trigger, the flatty trigger with the over travel stop. So if you're shopping initially, the minor price difference between the two of them would kind of lean me towards the Elite series. Just go right there and be done with it. And if there was something about the sights on either one you didn't like, of course on this one, or any of the OSPs, you can put a red dot on it. We've got a Vortex Venom that we use for dropping onto pistols that we've got temporarily. We're going to do a very short video showing this pistol with the red dot on it. Of course, you can't get a red dot on the regular competition series. It's just the OSP, which is only available in 4.5, whether the older one or the newer one. Now, of course, if you want a different caliber other than 9mm, the older series is where you're going to go, because right now the Elite's only at 9mm. That may change. You know, Springfield is constantly expanding their selection, but that's the available offering right now. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, all over the place. And have a great day. Thank you.